Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and goes without saying that this is both an honor and a privilege to be here at your convocation and your convocation, whichever year you come from. I'm very pleased that you've come here because I will tell you something about convocations. Once you've got a job, you don't think about convocations. And I'm very pleased and that you came because this is what I didn't do. When I got a job, I didn't go for my convocation. So I still didn't get that certificate in my hand after I did my MBA many years ago. I was asked to speak to you today about success in your chosen profession. I don't know what it is that you do. You're already working in organizations, or you're working for yourselves, or you're working with teams. I'm not entirely sure what it is that you do, all of you do. Sanjeev tells me that many of you in advertising agencies and PR companies and some of you in film production or whatever it is that you do. So I'm very pleased that you all have varied professions. But you're all somehow involved in the field of media in some way, in the field of communication in some fashion, form or the other. And I was asked to talk by Daljit. She sent me actually saying, don't talk about that, talk about this. So I said, okay, maybe I'll talk about it. Actually, I was completely stumped what to talk to you about. So she helped me a lot. And she said, why don't you talk about how in the field of media you stay relevant and inspirational? How do you stay relevant and inspirational over the many years that you're going to be working and contributing to your profession and to the world at large? Media, the wide and varied world of media changes rapidly as society changes rapidly, and especially in today's digital context, it's moving at the speed of thought. So things are moving so fast that we are connected with each other, not in 6 degrees of separation, but by the click of a mobile phone. So there is obviously a fair amount that you will need to do to be relevant and inspirational to yourself and to others in the years to come. So how do you do that? I thought about this a lot, and frankly, I was challenged as to how I'm a professional of yesteryears. I began my career in 1971 when there was, it was hard to get a landline phone, let alone a mobile phone. So I come from a generation which didn't understand all this, and I still don't. And I don't know how to advise or give you any pointers. You're younger, you're brighter, you're more contemporary than I could possibly ever be. So it's hard for me to do that. And I said, I don't know what it is all you do, but one thing I do know, I'm old and you're young. So this I know. So let me tell you a story about the oldest media professional I have ever seen. The oldest media professional I have ever met. I was on holiday with my wife in Spain, and this was in Andalusia, which is just south of Madrid. And a beautiful countryside, and I was told when we were passing by between, I think going between the white villages of Ronda and onward to Granada, and somewhere along the way I was told that there is these caves, these big caves, you know, with stalactites and stalagmites, and you can walk into these gigantic caves and see this, and it's a very pretty thing to do, and you should do that. So as a tourist destination, we drove there, and on a whim and a fancy, and we got there in the mid-afternoon, and we drove into this beautiful, beautiful cave, and it's stunning, okay, absolutely beautiful. But one of the interesting things was, I didn't know that they had been the home of people, more than possibly somewhere close to about 10,000 years old ago. And they lived there. These are Neolithic and Paleolithic people who lived there and made it their home. And they hunted, and they had babies and children, and it was a home. And we didn't know this. And I walked in there, I saw this stuff, and what on the wall I saw were these absolutely stunning, drawn in charcoal, paintings. Paintings of hunters, stories of leaping antelope, wounded warriors on the wall. And that was, I thought, the oldest journalist in the world, telling you a story about what was breaking news for him then, or her. I don't know whether it was a he or a she that drew it. But I was just so inspired by that. I just thought, how wonderful that after all those years, someone can still inspire you, and tell you a story, which I think is beautiful to even see and contemplate. It's just it makes you feel kind of small as well and humble. And so here's what I learned that day: to be inspirational, you have to be timeless. The most important thing to be inspirational is to be timeless. So I thought about what it requires to be relevant and inspirational, not just today, but on a continuous basis. So here are some rules. I don't call them, don't think of them as rules. It sounds really terrible. But here are some possible simple rules that you can sort of try and see if they make sense to you. I don't know if they do. Here's the first one. Remain a student forever. Do remain a student forever. You've left this educational institution, I know, and you're working in a job, but don't stop being a student. If you want, so let me tell you a story, okay, a story about an English professor, a professor who comes from England, not an English professor, but a guy who came from, a professor who came from England, and a Zen Buddhist monk who was in Japan. And this is an actually true story. This English professor thought that he should go and learn something about Zen Buddhism, and so he said the best thing to do is go and meet this illustrious Zen Buddhist monk who was a master, and he went to meet him. And he said, I want to learn about Zen Buddhism. So this Buddhist monk said, let us sit down and have tea. And the Japanese tea ceremony is absolutely fantastic. It's really, it's like a religious ceremony. It's very gentle, it takes time, it's very neat and beautifully ordered and lovely art direction and everything, right? So this guy does all that, the Zen Buddhist monk, and he keeps his little cup of tea on this beautiful white tablecloth and then pours tea very gently and very slowly into this teacup. And the teacup fills, and the teacup starts to overflow. And it overflows. And it's falling on the tablecloth. And it's falling onto the tatami mat. And this English professor is aghast. He says, my God, what is this man can't see what's going on? He's, such a beautiful thing. He's ruining it by pouring tea and it's falling all over the place. So finally can't hold it. So he says, stop. Can't you see that the teacup is full? And the Zen Buddhist monk puts the teapot down and very gently says to him, exactly. When your mind is that full, how do you expect me to pour anything into it? So the moral of the story is, you first have to learn, and then you have to unlearn. Then you have to learn, and then you have to unlearn. And then you have to learn, and then you have to unlearn. And you have to do this for the rest of your life. Because if you don't, you will never be open to new ideas. Your mind will be so full of the old ones that you cannot learn, which is why be a student forever. The second rule, if it is that, is inspire yourself before you inspire others. It's very easy to say, I will be inspirational. But if you're not inspired yourself, there's nothing that you can do to inspire others. I have met a lot of people, including myself when I look in the mirror, who know a lot, but they're terrible bores. Really boring people. They tell you all these great gyan patti that they have and how they know this and they know that. And they're really boring people. I do this a lot, okay? So I know from personal experience that I'm a colossal bore. And if you're not inspired by life, you cannot be inspiring to others. You have to be filled with wonder every single day. Every single day. I often am fond of talking about different forms of intelligence that people have. Okay, lots of people have different kinds of intelligence. But I want to talk to you about the intelligence of a carpenter, the intelligence of a potter. Their intelligence is fantastic. The way a carpenter understands wood, the way a potter understands clay is something that I will never have in my life. And I need to be inspired by them. I get inspired by the way they work. You have to be inspired by the patience of a gardener as he nurtures and takes care of a plant. He's waiting. There's nothing that's going to happen in a hurry. Nature can't be hurried, right? So he plants something, it's going to take maybe 2 years or something before a tree will give fruit. So be awed by the time a mother takes over preparing her baby's food. Every day you'll find a miracle if you're just open to the idea of a miracle. And so I want to share a story with you that I heard not more than, say, probably 15 or 20 minutes ago from the great Mr. Raghurai. And I asked him his permission. He just told me the story, and I just thought, wow, here's another miracle. I was talking about this, and here's a miracle. And this is the story of the small donkey, all right, the baby donkey. And Mr. Rai was telling me the story of how he became a photographer. His father wanted him to be an engineer, so he went and did a 9-to-5 job doing engineering. But he didn't want to do engineering, right? But that's what he was told he had to do. His brother was in the same thing, but his brother was a photographer as well. So one day he was somewhere on a site, and he said his brother was taking lots of pictures. So he said, can I take some pictures as well? Can I come with you? So the brother loaded film into a small camera, ordinary camera, gave it to him and said, come along. So he was there with his brother. And there was this beautiful village that they went to, and they were taking pictures of the village and the babies and the people working in the fields and stuff, and they were walking around. And suddenly on the other side of the field, Mr. Rai saw a little baby donkey standing there. And he said, how nice and cute that baby donkey looks. I think I'll take a picture of this little baby donkey. So he started walking towards the field, towards the baby donkey, and clicking these pictures with a little camera. When suddenly the baby donkey decided that this was kind of threatening, this strange looking creature approaching him with this little strange thing. So the baby donkey decided to run. Now, the people and the children thought this was a very funny thing, little baby donkey running, and they all started to laugh. So he thought, oh, this is a nice joke, let me run after the baby donkey. So there was donkey running, there was he running, a younger version of him running with a little camera, trying to catch this baby donkey. Finally, baby donkeys being babies got tired. So it stood, and Mr. Rai clicked a picture of this tired little baby donkey. And that picture got published in the London Times with a byline, half page, his first photograph. And that's how he became a photographer. Now, he was open to the idea. Life inspired him. As he said, nature whispers to you, listen. And I think that's such a beautiful story of being inspired by life. Because if you are, you will inspire others, I guarantee you, as he has done for years and years. You take any one of his pictures and they will move you to tears, the sheer joy of it, the beauty of it. So, are you open to be inspired? It is infectious if you are, even more than giving your best friend a cold. I promise you, you will infect others with your inspiration. Rule number 3, you can only be inspired if you are small. You cannot be inspired if you are big. When I was a little boy, my parents took me to see Jantar Mantar in Delhi. I was 7 years old. I was in Delhi at that time. And I went to see Jantar Mantar, and my father was telling me this is an ancient observatory. I didn't even know what the word meant. I wasn't really interested. It just looked like a giant slide to me, big, huge slide. And I thought, giants slid down this place. And I was visualizing knights and warriors, and I thought this was such a magical place. And it looked so huge. I was a tiny boy. Years later, I went to Jantar Mantar, and it didn't look so big. By this time, I knew it was an observatory. There were no more slides and no more wizards and warriors and giants sliding down things, and it wasn't that inspirational. Time had changed scale, and my age had withered my curiosity. And I just think that if you are small, if you don't let your ego get in the way, if you're small and don't let your ego get in the way, you will be inspired every day. And you can only inspire others if you're big. So you're small and then you're big. You're big in your heart and you're big in your generosity and you're willing to give your time and your attention to other people, then you will inspire other people. If you just have the generosity, give whatever you learn. Don't keep anything back. Give it away. Don't be afraid. It'll come back to you in many, many, many ways once you do that. Great leaders never give you wealth, incidentally. You just look at great, great leaders. Do they give you wealth? Do they give you money? They don't, right? They give you something else. They give you their attention, their time, and their wisdom. So just as you learn, give it away. The fifth rule is you have to play football. I'm serious. You got to play football. The fifth rule. I know a lot of you are cricket fans and all that. Okay. So am I. You know, Sachin is my hero. Jai Sachin. But you got to learn football and you got to play it to understand what I'm saying. Because in football, there's an astonishing thing that happens. In spite of Messi, in spite of Cristiano Ronaldo, in spite of Wayne Rooney, in spite of, Kaká, in spite of all these great players, there are 11 people on the field in each team. Each of them cannot be a center forward, because if you were, the team would lose. You have to have a goalie, you have to have a back, you have to have right wingers, you have to have left wingers, you have to have midfielders, you have to have forwards. All of them together in symphony, orchestrated, work together. You may be a striker, you may be a defender, you may be a goalie, you may be a fullback, it doesn't matter. In your life, you have to play the role as if you're playing football. Because if you are, you will inspire others and they will inspire you. That's why when you're playing football, you know exactly where the other guy is. You don't even have to look. He trusts you and you trust him. So I noticed this recently when she was just talking about me being part of a film, and I actually acted in a film. I can't tell you how thrilled I am. It's a great idea. I've never done it before, and I was completely thrilled. I played President Ayub Khan of Pakistan. How was that for you? Anyway, I can get into role quickly. It was quite an interesting role. Anyway, I was acting in this film in Patiala, okay, and there was this big stadium, and the unit was about 350 people. Multiple camera sets, locations, setups. They were shooting 2 or 3 sequences at the same time. There were trailers, there were carpenters, there were set makers, there were costume people, there were makeup people. I don't know. It's a lot of people, okay, and it's hot. But what I found over the 6 days that I was there was astonishing. Everything worked like clockwork. It was like a football team. Everybody knew what they were doing. The director, who was the king of the place, just gave instructions, everybody followed them. Which, when you're working in organizations, if you work like a film unit, you will find yourself being amazing each day. Because the end of the day, the most inspirational thing is a job well done. That's the most inspirational thing that you can ever have in your life, is a job well done, simply well done. And if you are, you will be satisfied. And you need to do it just not for yourself, but for the benefit of everyone. That's very important to have. And if you do that every day, you're inspired and inspirational. The 6th rule is to stay young, stay interested, be curious, and become encyclopedic. I once had the fortune of working with a great creative director called Kamlesh Pandey. Some of you may have heard of him. He writes scripts for Hindi movies now, and he's, in my opinion, quite a genius. Okay, amazing guy. And he said something to me about advertising that I think is absolutely brilliant. And he said this to me, and I'm called Shanta by all my friends, so he said, hey Shanta, to be good in this business, you have to be curious and you have to be encyclopedic. Because he said, you never know where the idea comes from, and you never know what will inspire you at that moment. Because people make connections, and we cannot understand where those connections come from unless we're open. So you have to be curious, and you have to learn about everything. So I love that, because if you're curious and encyclopedic, you never know where the idea comes from and what will inspire you the next moment. You're in the business of ideas well communicated, stories well told, things that others in the world will be inspired by as you go forward. For that, you have to be curious about everything. So here are some of the questions that I ask myself. Why does the water spin one way in the sink here and in exactly the opposite direction in Australia? Have you ever thought about that? It does, actually. It spins this way here and it spins the other way there. That's because the Australians are down under, right? But that's, you don't know. What makes women shop and men terrible at it? Think about it. There are actually scientific things for this. They're great, great things to learn about. What is the most played rock song in history? Anybody know? Anybody guesses? The most played rock song in history. Sorry? No. 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 Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. It's the most played rock song in history. I didn't know that until someone told me. Why does Priyanka hate Kareena? I don't know. I'd like to know. Really? There must be some reason, right? What is the fastest sport in the world? Wonderful. Excellent. Full marks. And why is Chicken 65 called Chicken 65? There is a reason for all of this. You cannot neglect anything in the world. This is the most important thing to learn. Random stuff, but I guarantee you someday, if you are especially working in the business that you are in, you will find connections. So I read incessantly, I watch movies all the time. My wife hates me for that. I love traveling, I eat all kinds of food. I have all sorts of friends, younger and older than me, and I travel. In short, one of the things that happens to me as a consequence of this is I stay young in my head. In my head, I will be 18 till I die. So it's nice to be that age if you can stay young. Okay, 7th rule. I'm not going to be much longer. Bunk work occasionally. Please bunk work. I promise you, I used to do this in my office, all right? I used to wander around. Sanjeev Days knows this. I used to wander around, and if I saw people not doing anything, I would ask them, what are you doing? And they say, we don't have any work right now. So I said, why are you sitting in my office? Please leave. And they thought I was firing them or sacking them, and I wasn't. I'd say, why don't you go and watch a movie? Why don't you go to a museum? Why don't you take a walk around? Because remember this, you're sitting in an office. The world is out there. Ideas come from there. They will not come inside your office. This is just a little cocoon, happy room that you're living in. Out there, things are happening. People are living their lives. People are laughing, loving, dying, fighting, whatever. They're doing things. So if you can go out, please bunk work occasionally. Most companies in India give you 12 days casual leave. Remember that? Take one every month. It's great fun. Or sometimes don't even tell them and just leave. It's great fun to do that. And then, be fashionable every day. Do not dress like this. No. I wore this because I thought this was going to be a formal occasion. I wish I dressed like him. And it's important to dress fashionable every day. Because the way you are outside reflects your state inside. I mean, women do this every day. They dress up. What earrings do I wear? Will this purse go with this? The shoes don't match. The sari, this color, the dupatta. I mean, how wonderful. Men Oh Lord, this shirt on the top, get me the shirt, put the jeans, put the shoes on and get out. That's it. Men are boring, women aren't. Be dressed fashionable every day. When I had hair, I swear this, when I had hair, I had a ponytail, which I used to plait, and it had little silver tassels on it. I had one ruby earring and one diamond earring. And I once, for an award ceremony, wore a silk pink dhoti. To this day, people come and say, oh, you're fantastic. I wish I had hair again. Anyway, that's another story. Okay, so please, how you look outside inspires what you are inside. So please dress fashionably every day. 9, be hungry but never for success. Do not be hungry for success. That's the worst soul-deadening thing that you can do in your life. Remember this, great people are never remembered for how successful they are, but for the value they create. Can anybody tell me the name of the chief executive of IBM? Anybody in this room? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the chief executive of Hewlett Packard, the chief executive of Shell, the chief executive of Exxon. You know someone in Exxon? But do you know who was the chief executive of Apple? You do, right? Nobody knows the chief executive's name of Nokia, I can tell you that. Even the people who work in Nokia. But Apple, Steve Jobs, everybody remembers him because he created things of value. So be obsessed, be hungry for creating value in other people's lives and making a difference in other people's lives. Because if you do, you will be remembered, you will be inspirational. Number 10, persevere. Always persevere every single day because it takes time for wisdom to arrive. Doesn't happen overnight. I have to tell you this story. It's a story of a seeker, a spiritual seeker, who was looking for enlightenment. He had read all the scriptures, but he hadn't met his guru. So he went around and then finally met this great Baba who was sitting there, and he said, Baba, please, mujhe diksha do na, give me some learning. And the Baba looked at him and said, Tattvamasi, that thou art. So he looked at him and said, that's it. I read that in the scripture. This is what you're telling me, Tattvamasi, that thou art. This is it. I mean, this is all that you can offer to me. I mean, come on, seriously. I mean, give me something more, a little bit more juicy. So the Baba looked at him and said, my son, I'm not your master. If you go 100 miles, cross that river, go across that mountain, etc., you'll come to a lovely little ashram there, and there is a saint over there, and he is your actual ordained, destined teacher. Please go there. So he went there, and he was all anxious. So he went to the teacher, and he said, the teacher looked at him and said, Baba, will you give me some diksha, give me some teaching? He just said, fine, it'll take you 12 years. He says, sure, Baba, what do I do? What do I do? He says, for 12 years you have to work, and you have to do seva in the ashram, and then you will learn. He said, I will do that. He said, what is my seva? He says, your seva is to go to the stables, where the horses are and the cows are, and what you have to do is pick up the gobar and the cow dung and the horse shit and take it and put it in the compost heap, and this you have to do every day. So he went there, and you have to clean the stables. He said, yes, yes, I'll do it. And every day, faithfully, without exception, he was up in the morning, he'd work like a slave. Never were the stables cleaner, never were the cows happier, never was there so much shit collected in all the years. And he was doing this year, and then the 12th year passed, and he was waiting. And he went, and he said, Swamiji, my 12 years are over. Now can you give me diksha? And the Swamiji said, sure, beta. Tattvamasi. And he got it. I said, Swamiji, but that's exactly what that man told me 12 years ago. He says, why did he? Says, because there was so much shit you had to take out before you could learn. In a way, that's true of our lives. You have to persevere. You have to work at this. It's not going to happen in a hurry. So be hungry, be impatient, but at the same time persevere. And the last rule that I have is about always remember the context, never the content. What is context? Let me tell you a story from, who's read the story of whatever? Meluha, the tales of Meluha, the story of Shiva. Has anybody read it here? Yeah? About how Shiva became Shiva, etc. In that, there's a story about Shiva meeting this Brahmin, who's his teacher. And the Brahmin turns to Shiva and says, you see that tree over there? He says, yes. Do you know what the color of that tree is, the leaf is? So Shiva looks at him strangely and says, yeah, green. He says, are you sure? He says, yeah, I can see it. It's a green leaf. He says, do you know about the theory of light? Asked the Brahmin to Shiva. He says, no. He says, do you know that the different frequencies? He said, no. He said, well, these are these different frequencies, and light comes in all these various shades. And actually, the leaf absorbs all the colors except green. In fact, the color it rejects is green. The leaf is everything except green. So if you look at the context of your vision of the world, the leaf is green. But from the point of view of the leaf isn't green at all. Context is about how you see the world. I think the Taittiriya Upanishad says the world is as you see it. So if you understand context, for example, religion is content. All the religious practices we do are content. God is context. The divine is context in which all this is held. In the same way, your content of your work has to be placed within a context of life. And that context should be about one thing and one thing only. I need to tell you a story. I was once offered this job of being the director of an ashram. Actually was offered the job. And I was really, really, really keen to do this. I thought it was a noble thing to do. But I couldn't do it because I had other obligations. I needed to, I had a family and I had to be somewhere else. If I wasn't, I would have done the job. So I was very tormented by this, and I was talking to these people who had told me that, why don't you do this? And I said, I can't do this, with this work, and there is seva, and there is seva, and there's work, and it's a conflict. And they started to laugh. And I said, why are you laughing? It's a problem, man. They said, no, the problem is you still think there's a difference between work, and you think there's a difference between work and seva. And seva is one thing. He says, when you make all your work about seva, there is no conflict at all. Because everything is about being of service. Everything is about being of help to everybody else. Then you never have a conflict. You will always be happy. You will always be doing the noble thing. So my only advice to you is, be of service to everyone. And then you will always be inspirational. Thank you very much.